I've always thought it was important in an institution, even a religious institution, to reflect on where we've been and how we got to where we are now.
Christ Church Cathedral has been on this block downtown for 175 years, which gives us a lot of perspective on the city of Houston. We've gone through a lot of ups and downs in the economy, in the development of Houston, and frankly in the development of the parish and of organized religion in American society.
This is an extraordinary place, but it wouldn't be the place it is without the people that have led us and supported us over time. I first came to Christ Church Cathedral on November 23rd, 1931, at the age of 6 months, when I was baptized by Bishop Quinn. My family didn't live in Houston. They lived in Harris County, but out from the city. And my great-grandparents, and probably before that, always came in a horse and buggy to church. And rain or shine, they were always here despite the distance.
My grandparents and my father and mother were members of the cathedral, and my grandparents were early in the, probably late teens, early 20s, were members of the cathedral.
I am a lifetime member of Christ Church Cathedral, and also am the 5th generation of my family that has been a member. My great-great-grandfather was Cornelius Ennis and was a member of this cathedral, and that was in 1839.
I was baptized in early 1945 here at the cathedral by Bishop Quinn.
And I was also baptized here. Reverend Hines was back in 1942 when I was baptized.
And my family and I came to this lovely place in 1939.
I first came to Christ Church Cathedral in the early to mid 1970s.
Though I was baptized here, I grew up in a different church and came to the cathedral for the rest of time in 1973.
I've been at the cathedral since Christmas Eve, 1983.
And I came to the cathedral in 1952, so over 60 years ago. I was about 9 years old, and I came because my father, Milton Richardson, was called to be the dean at that time. He succeeded Hamilton Kellogg.
We've always had, I think, excellent priests. All the deans had individual strengths and made individual contributions to this place.
Each one had their own personality and their own things that they wanted to see accomplished when they were here.
I first came to Christ Church in 1963 when Milton Richardson was dean. I was a young married, had moved back to Houston from law school.
Dean Richardson was really amazing to me. He was young and he drew young families into the cathedral.
My husband had not been a churchgoer, but we had been to a baptism, and he was so impressed by Milton Richardson that he said, "I want to go to church there."
Dean Richardson recruited young families. If they showed up and he found them promising, he would appoint the husband to a junior vestry, which had no power and was not elected, of course, but made the young families feel included.
He kind of encouraged younger people to join the cathedral. He figured that the heritage of the cathedral rested in recruiting younger people.
I came to the cathedral in 1960 when I moved to Houston. The ambiance of the church was wonderful. I didn't feel out of place as a single guy just walking in the church back then. I was 23 or 4 years old.
I first came to the cathedral in 1966, and I was dating Carter, who's now my husband at the time, and we just decided to come to the cathedral. Been here ever since. My first time in the cathedral, I was probably 15 or 16, and what Carter and I noticed that day was the youth were all sitting together on the front 3 pews. Having grown up in the Methodist Church and the Baptist Church and the Presbyterian Church and the Lutheran Church, we always sat on the back three pews. So it was very different. I knew there was something special about the cathedral.
My claim to fame is that my wife and I started going to Christ Church Cathedral when we were 19 years old in 1958. We were married here in 1960. Our 4 children were baptized, confirmed, and acolyted here. 2 of our children were married here. 2 of our 9 grandchildren were baptized here. We have a long history. We've seen good and we've seen bad times.
We went through a period of time where I think a lot of those young couples that were here moved out to some of the area churches because they were closer to their homes. And we were sort of back to what I would consider the core group of older members.
The situation was pretty grim. The number of old-time families that had been here for years left, and generally everything was going downhill.
Both downtown Houston and the cathedral were sort of in the midst of a standing 8 count. And I think there were 5 or 6 kids in the Sunday school.
I remember how few people there were. There was nothing for adults to do while the children's Sunday school was going on. I remember coming with my children for Sunday school, and while they went to Sunday school, I would hang out in what was called the Bishop's Dining Room, which was a little alcove off of the parish hall. And there were cookies there, and there was coffee there, and there were about 5 people there. And it was the same 5 people every week.
I came to Christ Church Cathedral in the summer of 1978. The cathedral was on financially hard times in those days. In 1980, Pittman McGehee became dean here, and Pittman had a great deal of enthusiasm, a great deal of energy, a great deal of vision about the place.
Pittman, of course, brought youth, brought energy, brought a focus on Christian education that built up the church because people began to come, and he was such a charismatic teacher that he filled the Great Hall every week.
Pittman was very skilled at getting a lot of different people involved, choosing people that were able to involve other people that would come in, maybe even walk off the street and were interested in the cathedral.
Pittman was really, in my judgment, Pittman was really responsible for bringing the cathedral back.
And his intellect and his ability on preaching and talking and lecturing really opened up things for people, and that's when the growth started.
When Pittman McGehee retired, he told me that this place was held together with chewing gum and baling wire, and we needed to find someone who could put reality in place. And that's certainly what Walter Taylor did with his many gifts of leadership and encouragement, and his remarkable insistence that we raise money for outreach.
So when Walter Taylor asked me to head a capital fund drive to try to restore the interior of Christ Church Cathedral, I said, well, I'd like to raise $2.5 million for ourselves and $2.5 million for outreach.
Walter came in with a really very different approach, and his approach was outreach-centered and urban-centered and downtown-centered.
Our mission evolved to an outward approach, and that's why the parish responded so well to the creation of ministries like Compass and New Hope Housing and Bridget's Hope under Dean Taylor. And then Joe Reynolds came with his considerable preaching abilities and his leadership and his encouragement.
By the time Joe came, I think we were really poised to move and do something exciting like the Beacon and the Dunn Center.
With Dean Barkley, I think we're just going to continue expanding the missions and the programs here at the Cathedral and at the Beacon and even farther out.
And I think Barkley is just, it's wonderful to have another young, energetic person. And I think he's going to be here for a long, successful tenure.
I think back over the period of the last 30 years, and we've had such extraordinary ministry from our deans. We have been so fortunate in the leadership that's been provided by these wonderful men.
The ministry of the church, in my experience here, has evolved due to both a very effective clergy and a very effective lay ministry people here.
It has been a community that offers an opportunity to serve for those who are willing to serve.
I've been so inspired by some of the individuals, and the people that particularly come to mind are my four heroes, the late Tom Barrow, the late Stuart Hellman, Harry Webb, of course, and John Cater. They've stepped in at extraordinary times with their support and leadership, and I don't know where this place would be without what they've done.
You know, John Logan has provided a continuity for this place for 34 years.
And I think everybody would agree that John Logan is an important part of this place.
And we are extremely fortunate to have had one person such a long time. He's seen 4 deans come and go.
My association with the cathedral began during the turmoil of the new prayer book. That's 1982. The new prayer book created all kinds of havoc, and there was a lot of adapting that had to be done, like the baptismal font and the position of the altar.
I was on the vestry when the decision was made to move the altar forward because the new way of doing liturgy meant the priest should face the congregation. We spent an entire weekend up in near Brenham at a vestry retreat discussing why we needed to do this, how we were going to do it, how we were going to deal with the inevitable reaction to it.
The news about it got out, and it was just almost World War III. You would have thought we were going to move it in the middle of Texas Avenue.
At the time when they moved the altar out, there was just a lot of rumbling about it and about whether or not we should do that, and you know, what would that mean to the cathedral and the congregation?
We all agreed it needed to be done, and we chose a day, and I think it was like a Monday that was a week away. And we said, okay, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the men are going to come in and we're going to see. We didn't know what was under it or behind it or what it would look like. And so we were invited to come down at 8 o'clock that morning and see. I had to drive carpool, so I got here late. And I walked in what I guess is the front door, the Texas Avenue entrance, walked into that area of the cathedral, and there were a whole bunch of people standing around, and I stood there with them for a minute looking up at the front of the altar, and then I said, when are they going to move it? And these guys said, they already have.
I came to the cathedral in either very late 1954 or early 55, I'm not sure which. Just prior to our coming here, the vestry had bought the Texas Avenue strip, the 100 by 250 feet all along Texas Avenue, which became our parking lot. Everyone knows a fire had burned down, furniture, and there had been a very nondescript garage built there. Later on, we had a capital campaign and bought the northeast corner of Fannin and Prairie, and that became the Jones Building. That was the time when we tore down the garage.
The parking garage came right up next to the cathedral. And when they were knocking it down and building the Jones Building, they had to put plywood over the resurrection window that's behind the altar to protect it. And that didn't change the look at all, because when the parking garage was there, you couldn't see any light coming in that window.
And it was just kind of a murky, dark-looking window. Pittman was here. John Logan was also here. And they made a pact that they would not look up at that window until it was uncovered. They lived up to their word, and directly the foreman came around and said, you can come look now. So they walked in through the east transept, keeping their eyes diverted, and they both stopped at the crossing and turned up and opened their eyes. And one of them, I'm not sure which, said, oh my God, and the other said, yes.
And you suddenly could see this beautiful window and the angels with purple wings. It was just really glorious.
One of the things that saved the cathedral in its leanest years was the music tradition here.
When Dad was here, he called Jack Oswald from New York to come down. I think he came from St. Bartholomew's, but came down here to be the organist. And I think that was the first really strong organist and choir master that we had. That was followed by Bill Barnard and Clyde Holloway and now Robert Simpson. So we had this list of just excellent organists and choir masters who have developed the choir so much over the years. It's really one of the things I think that the cathedral is well known for, is our excellent music.
And we've always had a superb music program. And I think that's one thing that brought me back as much as anything else. Beside the community that you encounter here, is the music.
Well, being able to sing in the choir is a great gift to me, but I think the music at the cathedral is a real gift to the congregation. We take it very seriously, and I think we do it very well, and it's very meaningful. There's an old saying that he who sings prays twice, and I think that's really true.
I think it does something for the soul, the inner person. I think it has a way of reaching places in your being that other ways of communication just don't do. And whether it's classical music, or whether it's Bach or Bruce Springsteen or whomever, it has a way of doing that. And I think that's an important ministry that this place has had for many, many years, that they've had top musicians as organists and choir masters, and they continue to do that.
If someone were looking for a church home and asked me where to go, I would tell them that they should consider the cathedral if they're looking for a place that's open to a diverse community in terms of both thought and all attributes of the congregation.
It's a place where there is a diversity of views and acceptance of that diversity, and a community that's very heterogeneous but very mellow and of one accord in our work together in downtown Houston.
And that's one thing I like about it, open to new ideas, and I think there's a great diversity of membership here.
Of course, the Mayfade has been here for 100 and whatever years, but one year they were going to pull the names of some cathedral angels out of the hat. But I remember one of them they picked was Keith Davis, and I just thought, wow, it's okay to have a gay person as one of the cathedral angels, and I just thought, go church. That's great. That's great.
The cathedral is a dynamic place. It has a heart of gold. It is a place that welcomes one with a servant's heart, because it's not significant what initials you have after your name, whether it's MD or JD or LLM or whatever it is. It's not important to me when I am here. And I am hopeful that the fact that JD follows my name is not a reason for anyone to want to know me at the cathedral. I want someone to know me because I serve as a vessel for a greater purpose.
The cathedral is different from almost any place else because for most of us, it's not our neighborhood church. Not many of us live downtown. Most of us go past another church on our way on Sunday to come here. People are coming here because there is something special.
There are a lot of exciting young professionals moving downtown, and I think we have a lot to offer, and we just need to let them know that we're here.
We're excited about the revitalization of downtown Houston and having more people live downtown because we're obviously a natural church home to those people.
We have such an inclusive attitude. I would think we would be very well positioned.
Christ Church Cathedral, being a downtown church, has the ability to respond to the needs of the downtown community.
But I do think right now in the cathedral there's a whole lot of energy. I think we need to focus that. I think we need to figure out what God's calling us to do next.
I think we're seeing, with the calling of Barclay as our new dean, a great upwelling of support among the congregation for all the activities that are ongoing. A lot of excitement, and people want to get things done to move forward in the future and are very excited about it all.